The world ended. But his spices didn't. Jax Forrester stood shirtless beneath the twin suns of post-Earth, sweat gleaming on his bronzed skin as he flipped synthetic meat over a sizzling iron slab. Smoke curled up, rich with umami, spices, and something nostalgic. His food stalled nothing more than scrap metal walls, a solar hood, and a few sand-worn tables was the last operational eatery on the planet. And the line, it never stopped. It twisted down the dusty canyon path and back into what used to be Sector 9, now a chaotic refugee zone for off-worlders and stragglers from the shattered alliance. The food wasn't just warm, it was hope. But today, the line wasn't what caught his attention. It was her. Skin like shimmering green velvet, platinum hair cascading in soft waves, and eyes like twin moons, silver and radiant. She stepped forward. Dressed in tight black combat pants and a crimson halter top, her body was toned, scarred in places from battle, but graceful. 2 spice wraps and a canned fizz, she said, voice low and smooth. Her accent wasn't native, definitely not human. Jax gave a crooked grin as he handed her the food. I didn't peg you for a soul survivor, Emerald Girl. She arched an eyebrow, her lips twitching upward. Didn't peg you for the last man standing, and yet, you're still cooking. He shrugged, leaning casually on the edge of his stall. They bombed the cities, not my appetite. That earned a soft laugh. She took a bite, eyes widening as flavor hit her like a plasma bolt. What is this? Real Earth seasoning. Smuggled it before the collapse. She looked up at him with new interest. I'm Varela, commander of the Zenthari escort fleet. Or what's left of it. He extended a hand, grease and all. Jax Forrester, Earthborn, food flipper, first and last of my kind. She didn't hesitate to shake it, and that was when the air sirens began to wail. The ground shook. Sand exploded. Into the sky, as anti-orbital missiles slammed into the cliffs nearby. People screamed, tables flew, someone yelled about sky marauders. Jax grabbed Varela's hand and yanked her behind the counter. Get under, he barked. She resisted. No, I've fought these things. They're scavenger hunters, Graxian biorators. They burn camps, harvest to canned females. She pulled a slender blade from her belt. It shimmered with violet plasma. He grabbed a long fork modified, welded with a current spike. Guess I'm back in the fight, he muttered. Ver gave him a quick glance. You've seen combat? I served in the Martian uprising. Killed a lot of things that didn't bleed red. Then the first raider broke through the smoke. A massive beast gray skin. Armor grown from bone, and blades where its hands should be. It roared. Charging toward the food stall like a freight train, Jax moved. He flipped onto the counter and drove his spike fork deep into the beast's eye. Electricity crackled. The creature screamed, then crumpled. Varela spun beside him, slashing 2 more that approached from the flank. And in the middle of the ruined food line, with the stall blazing behind them and chaos all around, they fought like 2 old gods reborn. By the time the smoke cleared, 9 raiders were dead. The rest fled, and the survivors, human and alien alike, stood in stunned silence. Then they clapped. A roar of cheers echoed through the canyon. Jax leaned against the smoking slab grill, panting. Well, he said, that's one way to ruin Lunch Rush. Varela wiped blood off her blade. You fight like a warlord. I cook like one, too. She tilted her head. You ever consider leaving this stall? He looked around. And go where? I've got loyal customers, alien girls lining up for sauce and a view. She stepped close. You've got fire. This planet, this sector needs more than food. It needs fighters. He met her gaze. So what, Commander? You offering me a job? Her eyes flicked down his chest, back up to his eyes. I'm offering you a war. Why do you pause, then grinned? Does it come with lunch breaks? Night fell on the canyon like a heavy curtain of ash. Fire still burned from the Graxian raids. Maul smolders in the rubble, glowing like scattered coals on a forgotten battlefield. Jax stood shirtless near his damaged grill, his chest streaked. With soot and blood, though none of it was his, the spice station had taken a hit. His tomato paste jar. Gone, but the customers, still lining up. Well, most of them. The others were tending to the wounded, burying the dead, and salvaging scrap tech from the fallen raiders. Still thinking about lunch? Virella asked, stepping out of the shadows. She now wore a tactical jacket over her tight gear, one side torn from the earlier fight. Her silver hair had been pulled into a high braid. Jocks didn't look at her. He was busy rewiring a busted solar burner. "I think better on an empty stomach," he muttered. She stepped closer. "I wasn't joking earlier. The Syndicate knows this outpost survived the bombing. They'll be back and stronger." "You mean the Graxians?" "No," she said grimly. "They were just hired guns. The real threat is the Velis Syndicate. Corporate warlords. They'll burn this canyon flat once they realize someone's feeding their enemies." Jocks glanced up. "Let me guess they don't like good food." She smirked. "They don't like resistance," Lee said, rising. "Then they've got a problem." "Because I've got a pantry full of attitude and a blade that cooks and kills?" She blinked, half surprised, half amused. That actually wasn't a bad line. "I've got a few." They stood in silence for a moment, two warriors, survivors, staring into the smoke-laced sky. Then Virella said, "I'm putting together a team. Off-worlders, mutants, anyone who can fight." Jocks crossed his arms. "You want me to lead them?" "I want you to train them. They trust you. They follow you. They showed up for food, Jocks, but they stayed to fight." He sighed. "I just wanted to grill, make something worth remembering." She touched his arm gently. "Then help me make this worth remembering." By sunrise, the first team had formed. Jocks named them the Griddle Guard, half joking. Half serious there was Brick, a former mining mech with a fried AI and a love for anything spicy. Nyera, a four-eyed alien assassin who refused to eat meat but adored Jocks' roasted roots. Hawks, a mutated human with armored skin and a voice like gravel soaked in rum. And a dozen others, hungry, half-trained but loyal. Virella oversaw drills.jx, cooked breakfast, barked commands, and when needed, threw a pan or two at someone's head. Between meals and sparring sessions, Jocks and Virella planned. The Velis Syndicate's next raid wasn't a question, it was a clock ticking, and ticking fast. 2 days later, the canyon trembled. The sky split with sonic booms as Velis dropships roared through the clouds. The refugees screamed. Jocks stood behind the counter one last time, brushing ash off his old apron. Virella approached him, her expression hard. "They're here," he said, grabbing the plasma fork from the hook beside his stove. "And dinner's ready." She placed a hand on his chest. "Promise me if I fall, you finish this?" He looked her straight in the eyes. "Only if you promise to haunt me if I die," she grinned. "That's the plan." They kissed quick, desperate, electric. Then the ground shook again. The first drop pod hit like a meteor. Jax rolled over the counter and slammed his weapon into the chest of a charging Velis merc. Metal crunched. The merc screamed. Behind him, Brick bulldozed into a second wave, swinging a stove door like a club. Nyera danced between explosions, throwing knives laced with ghost pepper oil because Jocks insisted flavor mattered. Even in death, Virella soared above the camp using a stolen anti-grav belt, firing pulses of violet energy from her gauntlets, her hair trailing like comet fire. They fought not for land, not for credits, but for every bite of warmth, every rescued memory, every moment where food meant more than survival. The battle raged for hours. By nightfall, the canyon was a war grave. The Velis were retreating, bleeding, beaten. Jax limped through the wreckage. One arm burned, the other dragging a broken fryer, turned into an EMP bomb. He collapsed beside Virella, who was kneeling over a wounded child. "You okay?" he asked. She looked up at him, eyes weary. "Barely, you know what that means?" "What?" He smiled. "Time for dinner." That night, there were no speeches, no victory banners, just quiet laughter, warm bowls, and the flicker of firelight dancing on faces that hadn't smiled. In months, Jack stood in the center of it, all shirt off, apron back on, flipping flatbread as alien girls sat around him, begging for second helpings, and half teasing him to marry into their tribes. Virella approached, arms crossed. "They adore." "You?" she said. He glanced at her. "Do you?" She leaned in. "If you feed me one more roasted pepper, I might let you find out, he chuckled. Careful, I got more where that came from. Ah! They stared at each other under the stars to survivors. 2 fighters. And maybe, just maybe, something more. The canyon had changed. What used to be a scattered refugee camp with tents made from crashed tarps in despair had become a fortified village. Camp Emberbite named. Of course, after Jocks' signature pepper sauce marinade, solar towers now hummed. On the ridges, food lines were organized, barricades built. Training rotations were posted alongside daily menus. Children learned to walk next to plasma rifles, and laughter returned always near the food stall. But Jocks didn't smile as easily anymore. Not since Rella started disappearing for hours at a time. He spotted her across the camp one evening, speaking in low tones with an armored alien officer through a crackling cum device. Her body was tense, her tone military cold. When she returned, she tried to brush it off. Scouting parties, logistics. But Jocks wasn't stupid. Tell me, he said that night as they sat together by the grill. What's really going on? She stared into the flames. The Velis Syndicate isn't retreating. They're regrouping. Word is, they've hired an elite enforcer. Jocks' eyes narrowed. Name Malvec Dread. Even the fire seemed to flicker lower. Jocks had heard the name before. Malvec wasn't just a merc. He was a warlord. A bio-enhanced assassin bred for planetary siege, rumored to have eaten his own clone brothers to gain their strength. He's coming here? Varela nodded. And he's bringing orbital support. We can't hold the canyon against that. Jocks stood, staring into the night. Then we don't. She looked up, startled. What do you mean? I mean, he said, walking toward the back of the stall where crates of preserved ingredients lay buried. We don't wait for them to burn us down again. We take the fight to them. That night the plan was set. J.A.X. Virella and a squad of their most trusted fighters would infiltrate a Velis outpost, neutralize supply lines, sabotage their warships, and lure Malvec into a trap. Jocks didn't just cook. He crafted bombs inside roasted squash. He laced his famous dumplings with neuro-dash trackers. He rigged a spice grinder to double as a sonic destabilizer. Even Brick, the mech with half a memory core, looked at him in awe. You cook with war, boss. Jocks just grinned. Nah, I season with it. Mission began under cover of a dust storm. Varela piloted the skimmer. Jocks rode beside her, holding tight as the wind tore around them. In the back, Niera prepped. Her throwing knives and Brick hummed old mining tunes. When they reached the Velis outpost, silence greeted them. Too much silence. Trap, Jocks muttered. Or bait, Varela whispered. They moved in. The outpost was cold steel and blinking. Lights, turrets, stood idle. Doors unlocked. It wanted them inside. Still, they pressed on. Jacks planted incendiaries and fuel lines. Ella downloaded maps of Velis. Orbital movement. Niera silently removed 2 guards. Then they found the war room, and Malvec. He stood 9 feet tall, clad in black. Alloy armor that pulsed like it breathed. His face was covered by a mask shaped like a predator's skull. His voice rolled like thunder as he turned to face them. You cook, he said to Jocks. I smell it on your hands. Jocks stepped forward. Unfazed? I season too. Want a taste? Malvac's arm moved faster than light. A whip of energy cracked toward Jocks' butt. Varela blocked it with a shield, hurling her body between them. Jocks rolled forward and launched a vial of ghost pepper thermite at the brute's feet. Fire exploded. Smoke blinded. Chaos erupted. Niara screamed. Move! Jocks grabbed Varela and sprinted out as alarms rang through the base. Brick bulldozed a hallway wall, opening an exit. They made it back to the skimmer with seconds to spare before the entire outpost erupted in flames behind them. Malvec did not die, but they hurt him, and now he was angry. Back in the canyon, the mood was tense. Jocks paced the roof of his stall. Gazing at the stars, Varela joined him, bruised but alive. He's going to burn this place, she said. He'll scorch the ground just to get to us. Jocks nodded. Then we give him a reason to stop. She looked at him, confused. He held out a hand. I want you to bond with me. Her eyes widened. The ritual. It'll link our minds, share strength, reflexes, even instincts. That's Lunari sacred, she whispered. It's 4 bonded pairs. Soulmates. Jock stepped closer. And I don't want to fight the last battle of my life without you in my soul. She stared at him a long moment, then took his hand. The ritual was brief, but in that moment, time stopped, their hearts wind, their breath aligned, and everything that had been his loneliness, memory, warmth now, became hers. Everything that had been hers, grief, brilliance, now lived inside him. When the ritual was over, they fell against each other, trembling, gasping, no longer two, something more. The stars above Camp Emberbite were no longer silent. They rumbled from horizon to horizon. Velis Syndicate carriers darkened the sky like a plague of iron locusts. Hundreds of drop pods screamed down like meteorites, shaking the earth. Camp Emberbite, once a humble food stall surrounded by ragged tents, now looked like a fortress on the edge of annihilation. And in the center of it all stood Jocks Forrester. No longer just the cook, his apron hung around his waist like a warrior's sash, now reinforced with blast mesh and spice canister grenades. His plasma fork had been reforged, now 2 blades, curved and glowing with violet energy. One hummed with Varella's Lunari frequency. The other buzzed with the power of Earth's final flare core battery, salvaged from the last solar refinery. Beside him stood Varella, her silver hair glowing under the stormy light, armor glistening with fresh energy lines. Their minds were linked now, their thoughts intertwined. He could feel her heartbeat inside him, hear her whispers before she spoke. They were more than lovers, more than soldiers. They were bonded fire. And today, they would burn. The first wave hit like a tidal surge of claws and plasma. Velis warbeasts, spiked and cybernetically enhanced, rushed the outer defenses. Jax moved like a dancer with a vendetta leaping between barricades, hurling spice bombs, slicing open chitin and steel. Each enemy that fell exploded in bursts of flavor and smoke. The battlefield reeked of saffron and death. Varella soared through the sky on anti-grav boots, raining down starfire blasts, her blades slicing through command drones midair. Behind them, the Griddle Guard fought like legends. Brick tore an enemy mech in half and then used its legs as battering rams. Nyera somersaulted between craters, throwing exploding pickled vegetables at anything that moved. Even the children helped loading ammo, relaying messages, dragging the wounded to cover. Camp Emberbite held for hours until he came. Malvec Dread descended like a god of extinction. His carrier ship landed atop the cliffs, casting the entire battlefield into a natural shadow. He stepped down the rampant feet of black armor, glowing with pulsing crimson veins. His left arm was now a plasma cannon, his right still a claw, perfect for crushing skulls. He strode toward the food stall. Bullets, lasers, missiles. Nothing slowed him. Jock saw him from across the battlefield, felt a chill in his chest, but he didn't hesitate. I've got him, Jock said aloud, though he barely needed to. Varella already heard it through their bond. Together, she answered. They met Malvec in the ashes of the broken grillware. The first meals were cooked, where the first laughs returned to the canyon, where it started now. It would end. Malvec roared and lunged. The fight was chaos incarnate. Jock stuck a plasma bolt and buried his blade into Malvec's side. Varella flipped over him, slicing the cannon arm at the joint. Sparks flew. Blood hissed. Malvec grabbed Jocks and threw him 50 feet, crashing into the spice crates. Ghost pepper powder exploded in a red haze around him. Coughing, eyes burning, Jocks stood and laughed. You just seasoned your own funeral, bastard. He charged back in. Varella danced beside him, their movements in sync. Every step, every strike. They weren't fighting a monster. They were cooking a legacy. Malvec howled, kneeling, finally, his armor shattered and leaking biofluid. He tried to rise only for Varela to plant a glowing lunari blade in his back. Jax raised his twin fork. "This one's for Earth," he said. "And for everyone who never got a second helping," Varela added. Together, they drove the weapon through Malvek's chest. He let out a hiss. Then silence. The warlord fell forward, dashed dead. And with him, the Velis broke. Their ships retreated. Their beasts fled. The syndicate had been fed its own extinction. Days passed. Peace settled over Camp Emberbite like the scent of simmering broth. The food stall was rebuilt larger, cleaner, but still with the original iron slab at its center. A symbol, a relic. A reminder people came from all over the ruined world. Humans, aliens, outlaws, survivors. They sat together, ate together, lived together, in jocks. Still shirtless, still cooking, still smiling. Varela often stood beside him, her hair now in a braid down her back, her energy quieter, softer. She was no longer just a commander, no longer just a warrior. She was his, and together. They ran more than just a food stall. They fed a planet. They rebuilt trust. They rekindled love one evening. As the suns dipped below the scorched ridges, Varela approached Jox while he roasted spiced root prawns for a group of wide-eyed alien children. She leaned in. She whispered, "I've never seen a bond like ours. You gave me war. But you also gave me something I never had." He looked up. "What's that?" "A home." He touched her hand, their fingers laced. "And I gave the galaxy something better than war," he said. "A taste of what love is like. Fresh, spicy, unforgettable." She laughed, then kissed him. And somewhere nearby, Brick muttered, "Ooh, not near the dumplings." The end, if you loved Jox and Varela's fiery journey, spread the spice. Share this story with your friends, your favorite alien girl, or that one post-apocalyptic chef you know. Want a sequel, a prequel, or a spin-off where Brick opens his own bakery? Just say the word.